are going to continue forward with our series. We are going to be making a hair oil, and I would like to make a multitasking hair oil. In my hair oil class, I do teach people how to um, make a treatment oil versus a finishing oil. But to keep this brief, I'll just make something that's multitasking for someone who wants to make an oil that kind of can cover both. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to have a little sip of water. All right. So hair oil. Hair oil is really an interesting thing. Sometimes I tell people just start with an oil and a butter, and they don't want to do it. But really, you can actually build an entire business just on oils and butters. Okay. I've done it before. It's not that hard. So you need to be open to that. If you feel like your budget is small, if you feel like formulating more complex products is hard for you. And honestly, for the health of hair, you have to have some oil. I'm really a big firm washing process. So including oil in the washing process, either as a pre-poo or an oil rinse, really, really helps with the health of the hair. It also gives the nutrients that you've put in your oil, because of course we're making an herbal oil, to absorb into the scalp because of the heat, either from, wearing a shower cap and going under a hooded dryer or wrapping a towel around it, or if you're a little lazy like me, and just the heat from the hot water in the shower will help the oil penetrate, will open up the pores of the scalp a little bit more so that the herbs and essential oils that you may have put in your oil can penetrate a little bit more. Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Barbara. And good morning, Elita. Thank you for being here. So I would say that doing that one, it helps the and even if you just used a basic carrier oil, right, with nothing in it, just the heat would help to sort of the oil to penetrate the scalp and the hair a little bit better. And just the oil itself, assuming you're using a good quality oil, has nutrients that our skin needs. Our skin needs water and it also needs oil. So it's going to have omega fatty acids. It's going to have, all kinds of things that are in the fat area of the, scientific spectrum that our skin actually craves. And it's going to help with scalp health and hair health. Obviously, the key is you don't want to clog the pores with oil, but that's the advantage of the washing process. It's hard to over oil when you're washing your hair. Another reason oils help in the hair washing process is that the washing process creates friction. We already covered on day 2, I believe, when we were talking about shampoos, how when you wash the hair, it ruffles the cuticles, so it, kind of stands up. So when you use an oil, it makes that process a little bit gentler. So the oil is kind of creating a barrier between hair strands so that as they rub up against each other, they're not ruffling each other as much. Oil also helps with detangling, so it makes the hair not so difficult to detangle in the shower. Some people actually like to detangle with a shampoo. That's not really my jam, but if you do detangle with a shampoo and you've used a pre-poo oil, that is going to make your process a lot smoother and you're going to have less breakage. All right. Good morning, Gloria and Justina. Thank you for joining us. So these are all really important reasons to use an oil in the washing process. And I'm mentioning this because a lot of times people have a hard time marketing their product, but you got to think about it in terms of doing a service. You show up with a sincere heart to inform people of what you'd like to share. Um, I'm so sorry, I just realized my volume wasn't up. Hopefully you could hear me. Um, you show up with a sincere heart, okay? And you share information with people because just because it's basic knowledge for you, it's not basic knowledge for everyone. Someone is starting on day one to really learn how to care for their hair. There's always a day one person, and there's always a day, a year four person who's going to learn something new from you that they didn't know before. So show up to share these tips and these reasons why they should use an oil. So maybe they might not use your oil, but they walk away with a gift. That gift is knowing why that oil is important, right? So and then chances are they will remember you. It makes your brand sticky to them because you gave them a beauty epiphany. And eventually they'll circle back and buy something from you, or they will recommend you to someone else. Somehow they'll just stay in your sphere because they'll now have that association that you give them valuable information that changes their life, right? So be that person. So that's the washing process. Talked about it helping to cushion the washing process, it helping to prevent breakage, it helping to um, help with hair growth, with balancing scalp conditions, just all depending on the oils and herbs and so forth that you choose. Now, what I call a finishing oil is something that we use in the styling process. What do we use to style our hair, and what do we use between washes to maintain our hair? Right? So some people like to oil their scalp. This is a good practice as long as it's not done excessively. But oil is a great thing to put on certain patches of hair, maybe that don't grow well, or that have experienced some breakage or damage, or some people who have an itchy scalp. Their scalp only itches in certain areas. So, sort of oiling that area with a suitable oil, not something that's going to clog their pores, but something suitable that is light enough to be absorbed into the scalp. And if that oil has herbs and essential oils in it, it's going to enhance it even more, right? Um, Jean-Baptiste Wilda, you are greeting us from Paris in France. Very nice. I love Paris. It's such a beautiful city. All right, so those are all things to be thinking about. Another reason we use oil in the finishing process is we want to seal in moisture. So a light oil is probably best for this. However, on wash day, if you sealed in with something really thick, like I know some people will use straight up just Jamaican black castor oil, no chaser, um, and it works for them, to seal in the moisture on wash day. But I don't know that I would use it repeatedly between washes, unless you're the kind of person who's washing their hair every other day, um, and doing wash and goes and stuff. But if you're washing like once a week, like most people, or every 5 days, then a castor oil would only be good as a finishing oil on wash day. So you want a finishing oil that people can use repeatedly because they're going to refresh their hair, they're going to want to seal in the ends. So I prefer a finishing oil to be light. So if a treatment oil has the possibility of being heavier, right? And honestly, I prefer like a thicker treatment oil because you are washing it out. So you don't have to worry as much about grease. And the thicker oils tend to be wonderful treatment oils. Um, and I prefer a lighter oil for finishing oil because people will put it on their scalp. And also, you don't want the hair to feel greasy, you know? How do you combine the two and make a multitasking oil? So let's, go into that a little bit. So on day one, when we were making our extracts, one of the extracts we made was an Amla and Hibiscus oil extract. So I advised you to infuse it in a light oil, something like sunflower oil, rice bran oil. Um, you could do almond oil or jojoba oil, whatever is a light oil that is stable and that is affordable, okay, for you to buy. So you don't want to infuse in really expensive oil. Like you don't see scientists infusing, um, herbs into prickly pear seed oil, which is extremely expensive, for example, and then selling that to people. They always use a basic oil like sunflower oil, which is still nutritious and so forth, but it's very inexpensive. It can be as low as $17 a gallon at the crafter level. That's really inexpensive for a whole gallon of oil. And it could be high quality, organic, and cold pressed, and so forth. So sunflower oil isn't expensive. It's stable, meaning that it doesn't go rancid quickly. You can expose it to light, you can expose it to heat, and it's not going to alter too much. I wouldn't expose it to too much heat. It's not as like sturdy as say coconut oil can be exposed to a lot of heat. But like just sunlight, for example, that kind of heat, normal heat, not like heating on the stove. Yeah, and it's light and it absorbs really well. It's sort of a wet, light oil. And so it can mix well with many things without altering the formula too much. All right. So because this is a multitasking oil, ordinarily for finishing oil, I just have people put it in at a lower percentage, like at 10 or 20%. But because it's a multitasking oil, I might have you do it as a higher percentage just in case people want to use it as a treatment oil versus a finishing oil. And you want it at a higher percentage in a treatment oil just because you are rinsing things out and so forth. It's not going to stay on the scalp. So for the period of time that it's on there, you want as much of it to absorb as possible. So you want a higher concentration. So without further ado, let's go about. Thank you for your questions. Hi, Hope lives from Southern Delaware. Awesome. I have never been to Delaware. It's your first time joining live. Awesome. Welcome. And coconut oil and palm kernel oil. I'll come back to that, Barbara, when we get to questions. Good morning, Kati. Nice to see you here. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Share audio. Sorry, I know I talk through this like I'm in the first grade, but I'm still new to this platform. I think I've made it smaller. All right. Oh, wait, no. There we go. So now I just need to go here and just give me a quick yes, we can see the whole document in the chat, and then I'll be able to know if you can see me or not. I mean, if you can see the Google Doc I started or not. Hey, Femi. Hi, Patricia. Nice to see you here again. Yes, we can see. Awesome, Jean-Baptiste. Thank you so much. All right, great. So I am going to go ahead and make this easier. All right. All right, so this is the only kind of formula. Remember how I was like stressing you guys out about weighing everything? This is the only kind of formula that you can do in volume measurements. One of the reasons why I say that is because oil is going to be sold to you by volume. All the other ingredients people are going to sell to you by weight, you know? But oil is sold to you by volume. Oil in volume is also pretty consistent because it's a liquid that doesn't change as much, so 1 pound of oil is always going to be a certain number of ounces, right? So the density of oils obviously is going to change between oils, but the volume of that specific oil is always going to be the same, and it's not going to throw your formula off. So it's going to be helpful for pricing because they're selling it to you by volume, and then you're calculating it by volume when you're doing your pricing, and it's going to be relatively accurate. All right, so this is the only one where you can get away. This is another reason why I like beginners to start with an oil, because it's really the least intimidating thing. So let's make it a normal size font here. So Amla and Hibiscus Infused Oil, whatever oil you chose. So like I said, for a finishing oil, I usually like to do about 20%, maybe 15%. But because it's multitasking, I'm going to go as high as 30%. Okay. And then I want to do 2 oils today. I'm going to do let me see my time. Maybe I'll just do 1 oil. Okay. Well, let's just see what kind of time we're working with. So Amla and Hibiscus Infused Oil. And then I would like to do 10% of castor oil. So castor oil or black castor oil, whichever one you prefer. Let's go at 10%. And ordinarily in a finishing oil, like I said, I feel like it would be too much. But I feel like castor oil at 10% in a multitasking oil, or even in a finishing oil, is just enough to get the benefit of the castor. And it'll thicken the product just a tiny smidge, just kind of make it a little bit richer so it doesn't just slip through your fingers. But it's not so heavy that it's going to feel sticky or too much. So castor oil at 10% is just perfect, right? Then the next thing I want to use some of the African oils. So this is going to be great for our friends who are on the continent, especially in Southern Africa, because you're going to be able to access these oils affordably. For those of you in the States, they are going to cost a little bit more, but it's going to give you that exotic factor. Then I'm going to do another formula after this one with the more sort of easier to find oils, the almonds and the avocados and so forth, just so that people have the option based on where they are to find what they need to find. So I'm going to say marula oil has a really nice complex array of fatty acids and so forth. So we're at 40. So let's just say 20% here. And then I will say mongongo oil. So if I hadn't used castor oil, I would use more of this just because this tends to be a richer oil. It's not heavy per se, but it just is very rich and wet. So I would just go ahead and use a little bit more of that. But because we have the castor oil, I'm going to keep it to 20%. All right. So now we are at, let's say, 50, 60, 80. All right. So then let's do 1 more oil that's super light. And I would go with, I like the watermelon seed. It's also sometimes called tsama melon. It's a heirloom melon that is indigenous to that region. So watermelons, I think, originate in Africa. So the tama melon or the Kalahari melon, sometimes it's called melon seed, or the Kalahari melon seed. Okay. So this one is going to be a really nice sort of light hydrating oil. So we're at 40, 80. I would say 18%, right? And then we can go here and we can do essential oil. So if you're doing like say mint and you're only doing peppermint, then keep it down to a 0.5% or 1%, right? But if you're doing something lighter, you can go like a lavender, you can go as high as 2%. It's probably safe. So an essential oil or an essential oil blend. I'm not going to have room for everything, so let's go like this. Essential oil blend. Or natural fragrance. And you can also blend a natural fragrance with an essential oil blend, especially if you're using essential oils that feel like super pungent, that don't smell pleasant. Like if you're using an essential oil like thyme, for example, which is amazing for hair growth, but it's intense. I would definitely do thyme with a blend of other essential oils that will kind of tone down that smell. And I would also probably add a natural fragrance to sort of balance it all out. Okay, so that's our African oil one. All right, and then let's go over here, and then I'll just copy the same thing. So copy. Right, and then let's say ounces. I'll just say African oils, right? And then oops, and then we'll do here. If only I could type this morning. I'm a little sleepy, as you can probably tell. Let's do, I don't know what to call this. Let's just say more common oils. I hate to put it that way because it makes it sound like it's not a good formula, but it is a good formula. Just for lack of better choices of words. Okay, so here I would put something like grapeseed oil. And one of the reasons why I like grapeseed is that it really absorbs well in the scalp, especially in hot oil treatments. It works well in rinse out treatments. And when combined with other things, it makes a great finishing oil. I love avocado oil. It tends to work well for so many people. It absorbs well. It softens the hair. It just seems like just a go-to oil that a lot of people love. So I would say grapeseed, avocado. I think argan oil is really beloved by a lot of people. It can be a bit pricey, so I'm going to give you an alternative if you don't want to do argan. Let's see, let's do this. And then I can go here. So let's say argan oil. Camellia, or it's camellia seed, which is the seed of the green tea flower. plant, I think. The green tea, I guess the flower of the green tea plant uh, has a seed that they press oil from that's really lovely. And it's actually inexpensive, which surprises me. Um, and it kind of, feels nice in the hair. It coats the hair without feeling sticky, and it almost feels like a dry oil, and sometimes is thought of as conditioning the hair, or I will say apricot kernel. Okay, so the argan and the camellia are easy enough to get at any of the places that sell bulk oils. Um, if we have time, we can talk about that. And then the apricot kernel oil is also very easy to get. And camellia and apricot kernel oil are inexpensive. Argan is more pricey, so just work with your budget here, okay? Um, and so now let's go ahead and do some actual calculations. And what's nice about this formula is that, so we say test batch. I'll have to make this smaller so we can fit large batch. And just a little bit smaller here. Yeah, that one seems to be okay. So our test batch will be, I would say 10 ounces. So that'll give you enough to pre-poo and finish your hair with, see if you like it. And then 100 ounces for, I love this thing, I'm getting ready to sell it. Okay, so this is going to be super easy to do, as you will see. So let's go with 3 ounces and 30 ounces. A really large gap between these two, but that's okay. I don't feel like we have time to correct that. 10 ounces, 2 ounces, and 20 ounces. 2 ounces and 20 ounces. 1.8 ounces and 18 ounces. Then here we would say 0.2 ounces. So 0.2 ounces is going to be about 6 mLs. So I'll just go here and put 6 mLs because that might be too difficult to do in a measuring thing. So just put 6 mLs here. And the reason I know that is one ounce, one fluid ounce is about 30 mLs. And so 0.2 of 30 would be 6. Okay, so yeah, and then here you can just do 2 ounces. Okay, and that's that formula. And then really all I need to do is copy and paste this stuff because it's the exact same proportions that I did. And then let's do the 2 ounces next because there's 2 of those. Okay. Then we'll do this because it's right in front of me. So, oh, it's a pity. I'll just put this next to it because I want it all to be on the same page. There we go. And then this is 1.8. This is 1 ounce. Okay. Oh, you know what? Maybe I should just do this. Maybe that's the problem. As much as I want it all to be on one page. All right. So let's do our formula in milliliters for our British friends here. So let's go like this instead. We'll go like this. Okay. And we'll go like this. Now I'm just going to change everything to mLs. Our test batch is going to be 100 mLs. That's about 3 ounces for them. But you can always double the amount if you want to do it. 100 mLs is enough to test for a finishing oil. And then if you want to pre-poo, you can just double it. Okay. Just for ease of formulation here. And then I would say 1,000 mLs. Ooh-wee. mLs. All right. So this is also becomes very easy, right? So we'd say 30 mLs, and then this would be 300 mLs. Then this would be 10 mLs and 100 mLs. And this would be 20 mLs. So you can see the left column. These two columns are identical, right? Because 30% of 100 is 30. So this is why I do the batches in this size. Predetermine the batch size so that your percentages become easy. So when you start formulating and you kind of use this sort of process, I should have copied and pasted, but I was talking too much, so I didn't see. When you use this kind of process, your systems make sense from the get-go. Okay, so this is why I teach the Strong Foundations course. It's really sort of, parts of it can feel boring, but the reason is you're creating foundations that are going to make your processes. All the customers who are in a rush and they want to do things fast and they don't want to read and they don't want to watch end up coming back and wishing they'd done this, because now with your strong foundations here, you can see how you've infused the same oils, the same everything throughout the line. You can even look at your conditioner recipe and only use the oils that are already in the conditioner or are already in the shampoo to make your finishing oil, so that you're not, incurring too many costs and buying 50,000 different ingredients. So just kind of be thoughtful about how you're doing stuff so that your life can be easier. So in mLs, All right, so this is perfect. It's right here for me. Ooh. Okay, Control copy. Okay. Um, we're just gonna copy that down here. Oops, what have I done? Here we go. I just need to go down a little more. Okay, here we go. All right, we'll copy this. Okay, except that I didn't put the L there. And then this and we have one more. I'll just do it like this. Um, let's do 2 mLs and 20 mLs. Is it 20? Yeah, it is 20 mLs. All right. Directions. Measure all ingredients by volume and pour into a jar or mixing bowl. I kind of prefer a jar just because you can close it and shake it really well to mix it. Sometimes people mix very lazily in a bowl and they just kind of stir 3 times and think that it's mixed because you can't really see, you know, but if you put it in a bowl, make sure you mix it really well so it's all mixed evenly. Or mixing bowl, shake or mix evenly with a spoon. I know that's terrible English, but I think you know what I mean. I kind of don't want to spend too much time on the directions today because they're really simple. All right, and I don't even have to color code anything. It's just easy. The whole thing, just throw the whole thing together and mix it. And that's essentially the recipe. Okay, so let's go here and we can stop our share. And I'll look at some questions before I run off. Hello from Australia. How fun, Adrian. Thank you for joining us. My sister lives in Australia, but I've never visited Australia yet. She's visited me here. So let's go ahead and look at some of these other questions. Will you convert the percentages to ounces so we properly measure each oil? I think I may be mixing too much oils, one versus the other. I think I already did this, Hope. Let me know if I didn't cover it for some reason. But I think I just did that. So maybe the question was just beforehand. All right. So what is the difference between multitasking and finishing oil formula-wise? Is a finishing oil heavier? Great question, Femi. I actually covered it at the beginning of the broadcast, but I'm going to answer it again here for anyone else who missed the beginning. A treatment oil, between a multitasking and a finishing oil formula. Oh, that's actually perfect. I think that a multitasking oil could be a little heavier, or you could make it the same as the finishing oil. I just think that the multitasking one, I put a higher percentage of the herbs, of the herbal oil. Texture wise, it's not going to be heavier because of that higher percentage. Because remember, we steeped our herbs in a light oil. So I had you choose a light oil like a sunflower oil or a rice bran oil. You could use camellia, you could use almond oil, jojoba oil, something light, so that whether you use a little bit of it or a lot of it, it's still going to be light. I think that the multitasking oil has in mind that people might rinse this out of their hair, and so you don't want it to be too light. Whereas with the finishing oil, you have the option of making it medium weight or completely light. I prefer multitasking oil to be light, but kind of more on the medium weight side, right? So I'm just creating a recipe that I feel will have an impact on the hair and on the scalp, even after it's rinsed out. So I don't know if that makes sense, Femi, but it's just sort of playing with the proportions and sort of dealing with the fact that people might add water to this, you know? However, if they don't add water to it and they put it on their scalp, it's still light enough to where it's not going to clog the scalp. It's still light enough in the hair that they can, use it between washes. So those are the reasons why I put those proportions in there, but both of them are still pretty light. They're still pretty light. Like if it was a finishing oil, I probably would have brought the percentage of the herbs down a bit to 20% or something like that. And maybe I wouldn't have used as much mongongo oil or as much avocado oil, but still, you know, it's not that big of a difference. Won't the fragrance oil alter the potency of the product? That's a good question. So the fragrance, first of all, is only in there at a smaller percentage. So if you're doing a synthetic fragrance, you would only put it in at 0.5%. This is why things like perfume are usually at the end. So 1 or 2% of anything is not going to alter the potency. Natural fragrance, I have a whole YouTube. I keep looking at the comments instead of looking at the camera. So sorry, guys, I'm not trying to avoid you and just forgetting. My masterclass in natural fragrancing kind of breaks down the difference between the various kinds of fragrance, right? So you could use just essential oils, right, instead of the fragrance. Essential oils are extremely potent. You would never use an essential oil usually at more than 2%, and usually 0.5 to 1% for something like mint or thyme or clove would be the norm, right? So it's not going to alter the potency of the product. I'm not advocating that you use a synthetic fragrance, and a synthetic fragrance is not going to alter the potency, but it is going to alter the purity of the product, because now your product is not fully natural anymore because synthetic fragrances have chemicals. So hopefully that answers that question. What would you recommend for natural fragrance? Again, the free masterclass on natural fragrance is like a whole video. It's like a whole class, just like this one. And I go through the different categories of natural fragrance, and I tell you, where they're available, at least in the States. It's harder to find, I think, in Europe and so forth, but even then, I still give you some options. Um, Chris Boca says yes, but I'm not sure what you're saying yes to, but it must be, I asked a question and you said yes. So thank you for answering. All right. So Hope Lives. What's a good oil for dry scalp patches? Even after moisturizing the next day, the dry patches return, especially at the hairline, ear areas, and top of scalp. Okay, Hope, I would experiment with um, several things, but I think that it sounds like you need things that are healing and maybe scalp balancing. So I feel like rosemary might be something that is really good for you. So infuse rosemary into an oil, just kind of make a really good infusion. Um, because you're probably in a hurry, I would say instead of doing a third of the jar, I would do two-thirds of the jar with rosemary leaves, then fill the top with oil, and then shake it regularly. And then in 3 weeks instead of 6 weeks, usually I say 6 weeks, one-third of the jar. But because it sounds like you might want this sooner, I would say 3 weeks, two-thirds of the jar, right? And steep that and just try using that on the scalp and see if that helps. Um, Definitely use it when you wash your hair. I would say when you wash your hair, also make a rosemary tea and let that be your final rinse. You can even mix it with some apple cider vinegar if you want. Um, you can infuse rosemary into vinegar, right? So if it's like a scalp balance issue, if you're overproducing oil or underproducing oil, the rosemary will help to sort it out. Even putting a little bit of rosemary in your shampoo or your conditioner, like essential oil, that'll help. I would also, I don't know if you have eczema or psoriasis, in which case, what would help with that would be calendula. So you do exactly the same things I prescribed, but do calendula. Um, but yeah, I have that same issue. Um, and I think that just using good herbal shampoos, um, all things natural, I'll just put it in the chat here. She has great products for scalp. That's all I use for my scalp. I use her refresher, I use her shampoo. Um, you know, I make my own oils, so I don't bother with that. But the other things I don't have as much time to make. So that's what I use for my scalp personally. And for my kids, because they don't have scalp issues, I use other products like Rosiona Naturals was here and, a few other people. I try to support small artisanal businesses, but all things natural. You can find her on Etsy, and she also has her own website. So if you have scalp issues, that's who I would use for that. Femi says, when I mix oils, I just mix anything in any volume just till it feels nice to my hair. That's wrong. No, that's not wrong. Um, but if you are selling a product, you're going to have to take notes, right? So you understand what it is that you're doing. If you're wanting to sell a product, when you mix anything in any volume, just have your notebook. You should have like a little formulation notebook that's dedicated to just formulating and take notes of what you did because I know you think you'll remember how much you mixed, but you won't remember eventually because you're not mixing oil every day. So just kind of, be sure to sort of look at what it is that you're doing and take note of it. It just feels like it would be easier to think of the proportions in your head and mix it first and then see how it felt. And then if that didn't feel good, switch out the percentages. Because eventually it comes down to once you're being consistent, you have to create a formula so that it can be efficient. So you might as well create the formula from the beginning. So what you're doing isn't wrong. It just sounds like it's easy in the beginning, but in the long term, it may be harder for you once you start replicating processes, once you start trying to make larger batches. And it might also be difficult to create a consistent product. But if you're just doing this at home for yourself, girl, mix away. Mix away till it feels good. All right, Hope Lives. I can't wait to share this video with my godmother looking for natural oil. She's going to be so happy to learn from you. Awesome. Hopefully this will help her. Stanley Tetty says, good job. Thank you, Stanley. Good morning, Abigail Sunday. Thank you for the conversions. I'm learning so much. So I think this answered your previous question, Hope. Can you add preservatives to pumpkin seed oil as it goes rancid within months of purchase? Also, if I wanted to add silicone to this oil, do I need an emulsifier? All right, Patricia. So if you buy a silicone, and as long as it says oil-based, right? Or, mix in the oil phase or whatever, as long as it's an oil and you're confident it's an oil because it says so on the website, you don't need to add a preservative because you added silicone. What can you add to preserve pumpkin seed? I would say a preservative and an antioxidant are two different things. So the pumpkin seed is going rancid, not necessarily because it's incurring bacteria, it's because the oil is oxidizing really fast. So adding vitamin E will help to slow down that process. Another thing you can add is rosemary oleoresin. So rosemary oleoresin, and I'll go ahead and pin that. So rosemary oleoresin, that in a small percentage will also help to increase the shelf life of the pumpkin seed. I didn't know pumpkin seed goes rancid really quickly. That's interesting. I've never experienced that, but I haven't worked with pumpkin seed a lot. I loved actually consuming pumpkin seed oil a long time ago when I was still a raw vegan. So I don't know if I have a solution for that. But if you did want to add a preservative, this is the one that works for oils. It's called phytoside elderberry. And I've seen it many different places. Just Google buy phytoside elderberry in, UK or, I don't know, Italy or Australia. In the States, I've seen it at Formulate a Sample Shop and I've seen it at Lotion Crafter. They might have it at Making Cosmetics, but I don't know that they necessarily call it by that name, so it might be harder to find that. I'm not really sure what lupus is. I've heard of it, but I'm not really sure what causes lupus. I don't know if it's an inflammatory, like the body is inflamed and it's an inflammatory response, or what's creating that. I would combine rosemary and calendula so that if it's a scalp balance issue, it takes care of that. And you know, if it's inflammation, like the calendula, rosemary also soothes inflammation, but calendula is super soothing to inflammation, so I would consider that might help her. I'm pretty sure it would help, just because they're such healing herbs. So I would go ahead and give that a try. All right. Hope Lives. Rosemary infused oil, 2/3 of a jar steeped. Used during wash, rinse with green tea or with ACV. Notes here so I don't forget. Okay, there you go. Yeah, and you can, and when I say wash, you can also make You can also make a tea of the rosemary. It says green tea, but maybe you meant rosemary tea. So I would do rosemary tea on its own, or I would do rosemary tea with like um, an eighth of a jar ACV with rosemary tea. So just a smidge of the ACV, and then the rosemary, and that'll really help. All right. And I think in the locks class, I talk about how to make an ACV wash. And so there's difference between an ACV rinse and an ACV wash. An ACV wash is kind of like half ACV, half water, or half tea. And then you use that to wash your hair repeatedly until it's clean, being sure to scrub the scalp and so forth. The other one is just a rinse that you do as the last step before you put in any styling products or whatever. So will your hair smell like vinegar? It will, but once your hair dries, the vinegar smell goes away. So, okay, I think I already did that. Can you spell calendula? You spelt it right. That's exactly how you spell calendula. Kiara Perkins. Hey, Miss Eden, what is a natural preservative you would recommend that's universal for toners, face washes, shampoo, etc.? Okay, I recommend gluconolactone with sodium benzoate. And gluconolactone with sodium benzoate. Okay, so there you go. That's the one I recommend. Sometimes it's also called GeoGuard Ultra, but of all the natural preservatives, that's the one I trust the most. There are many others, but I'm not going to recommend them because they don't have as much of a track record. So, there have been products in Sephora and fancy places that use these other natural ones, and people were returning the product because it had mold in it. So, just because it's natural doesn't mean that, it necessarily works. So let me see. Femi, thank you so much, Femi, for your $10 super chat. That's so sweet and generous of you. I will buy a cup of tea and think of you. So, how many different types of oils are there, and what's the difference? Oh my goodness, there's so many different types of oils. I get so far treatment oil. Oh, I see what you're saying. Treatment, finishing, multitasking oils. Any more? Thank you so much for answering all my questions, lovely. Oh, you're very sweet. I think that those are the main ones, really. And we could go into subsections of these oils, but they're all variations of treatment. So treatment oil is basically something you're using in the washing process. A finishing oil is something that you're using to style hair. A multitasking oil is creating sort of an efficient product that can do everything. So those I would say are the main types of oils, and that applies to body oils as well. So you could do face care oils, you could do, body oil, you could do, bath oils. It's the same process. Are you using it in the washing of the body or hair? Are you using it in just sealing moisture or just as a final grooming process? Or you're creating an oil that can be used um, in multiple ways. All right. So hopefully that answers your questions. Okay, so I think I answered this. I'm gonna have to jump off soon because I gotta get the kids ready for school. How much ACV do I mix with rosemary oil during washing? Gonna do today. Which tea do I mix rosemary oil with? Green tea? How much rosemary oil should I be adding to my hair oil shampoo tea? Okay, so what I would do is I would take like a 32-ounce mason jar, kind of like this, right? Sorry, you can't really even see it. The camera is not even that Awesome. But this is a 32 ounce, which is about a quart, um, which would be about, I don't know, like maybe a liter or something like that. So I would make a rosemary tea. You can just use the rosemary that you get in the grocery store, right? Don't go to the spice aisle, it's going to be too expensive. So if you can go a place where they sell a bigger size of rosemary leaves, or go to the usually if you go to the ethnic quote unquote aisle, um, if you go to the Mexican section, they have these little bags that are a little bit more affordable. I don't want you to spend $4 on 2 tablespoons of rosemary just to do this. If you're in a hurry and you want to do it today. Otherwise, order in bulk your rosemary leaves or go to an herb store if you live in a city that has an herb store. So you're going to make a rosemary tea, you're going to make it pretty strong. And then instead of mixing your ACV with water, you're going to mix it with rosemary tea. And so if you're doing it as a wash, you're going to do it over the sink, and there'll be a big bowl in the sink to catch the ACV and rosemary. So you're going to do half ACV, half rosemary tea, and you're going to pour it over your hair, and you're going to be scrubbing the scalp as you do it, scrubbing the scalp, scrubbing the scalp, scrubbing the scalp, and the hair is kind of naturally getting clean. And then, have a towel, and ACV is a bit stingy, so just be careful about your eyes. And then you can pour that ACV that you caught in the bowl, you can re-pour it into the jar, and then do that is that, the issues, rub your scalp and so forth. If your hair is not very dirty or if it's not very long, and then that will probably do the trick. Otherwise, you might need a second jar where you do that. And go for usually the third time cleans everything. If you're doing a rinse, a rinse is different. A rinse is something that you would do. So the step I just described, you do at the beginning. A rinse is something that you would do at the end. So you don't have to do both. You can do either or. It just depends on what you want to do. A rinse is you're going to take a quarter. So instead of filling this halfway, you do a quarter of it, maybe even less than that, of ACV, and then fill the rest with your rosemary tea, and then use that as the rinse. Now, if you don't have rosemary tea and you're going to use rosemary essential oil, just a few drops for each thing, because rosemary essential oil can be intense. So just 3 or 4 drops for each product. For your shampoo, I would just pour the amount of shampoo probably into a bowl, right? And then in that bowl, I would say maybe do 4 to 6 drops in that bowl, because the shampoo, you're going to be washing it with water. So a lot of it is going to rinse away. Put that in the bowl, mix it together with a spoon, and then just take your bowl into the shower or put it by the windowsill or however you, shower, and just kind of use that and just be rubbing it really well into the scalp. In your hair oil, just like a little bit. So you're adding 1% to your hair oil, and then just kind of just a smidge, and then using the hair oil there. So hopefully that answered your question. Patricia says that's such a good tip. Thank you. I think you're talking about the pumpkin seed oil, but pumpkin seed oil tastes amazing. Yes, it really is. Oh, I've never had it in porridge. I always had it in salads. That's a great idea. I might have to go get some pumpkin seed oil and put it in porridge. Okay, thank you for the info on the phytoside. Yeah, you're welcome. What's your thought about shea powder and oil and everything? Ooh-wee, shea powder. Let's go. I think shea powder is a thing. It's a real thing. I think that getting access to genuine shea powder is a difficult thing. So if you can get access to it and you infuse it in your oil and you use it in your shampoos and stuff, then go for it, But the question is, can you find a good source? So if you can, then, I'm all for it. Man, I'm gonna Do you recommend selling a hair oil with hibiscus buds or rosemary leaves in it? I think that this is more of a gimmick that people are doing. Um, the real question is that oil properly infused with hibiscus buds or hibiscus flowers or rosemary leaves? Or did they just add it at the end just for show? I only want to see little flowers and stuff floating in my oil if you did a proper infusion, because just putting it in at the end um, isn't doing anything if it wasn't in there for the long haul. So um, I'd rather see people show me a jar of herbs steeping on their Instagram or their Facebook. I'm like, okay, that will get my attention because I know they're doing the right process. And if you want to put the oil, the flowers or whatever in for decoration at the end, go ahead and do it. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, I do wonder though, if you left it in there, like if you sold someone something like that and they didn't use it for like a year, because we've all done that. We've bought products that we haven't used or products that we forget about. I wonder if it kind of affects the longevity of the oil because there's something steeping in it. Um, so if you're gonna do that, there's always that risk. But I don't think it's bad. I just worry that for some people it might be deceptive. Like sometimes people feel like those those two rose petals are really doing something. I'm like, no, it needs to have done something before it even got in the bottle. And the rose petal is just for decoration or just for image, right? Um, so you guys know me and you see how not fluffy I am. I'm like, you better give me some substance. I don't want flashy things that don't mean anything. So definitely if you're going to do that, also show the substance behind your process in your marketing and and then that's fine. Those things are actually quite pretty to look at. So yeah, there's no right or wrong. Just as long as we're not deceiving people. I used to get my daughter's inflammation markers down from 123 in 2019 to 40 in May 2020. Now they are normal. Okay. And you're saying that you did pure mangosteen pressed juice, including skin, seeds, and flesh of fruit. Wow. That's awesome, Hope Lives. Hope Lives. Um, that's really awesome. I don't know where to get fresh mangosteen. Uh, maybe like an Asian market, but that sounds pretty cool. What labels stand up to oils? You want to go for waterproof, oil-proof labels. So when you go to label places, the ones that are um, sold as cosmetic, you want to go to the section that says cosmetic labels, and usually they'll be waterproof and oil-proof. Um, I know BOPP, I'm not sure what that stands for, but if you can get BOP labels, those tend to be oil-proof and waterproof as well. But whatever company you're ordering labels from online should be able to take care of that. So let's see. Thanks so much for your videos. This has helped me so much. Very informative. Oh, I'm so glad it's helped you, love. Thank you so much, Cairo and Curls. That's a great name. So Chris Polka. Oh, thank you so much, love, for your $10 super chat. That's really sweet. I will also have a tasty beverage on you. Hi, Eden. My label description disappeared over time, and then I can't tell you which batch it's from. Any suggestions on labels that stand up to oil? I think I just answered that. I just hadn't, gotten to it yet. But yeah. Yeah, so I would look at online labels. I have several clients who get their cosmetic labels from there. Just look for the weatherproof labels at Online Labels. Um, Lightning Labels has white bop. You can also just walk into a print shop and say you want labels that are waterproof and oil proof, right? And they will be able to stock that for you and create your labels for you. So, Robin Davis, good morning and thank you for this information. May God bless you highly. Thank you so much, Robin. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for, investing your time and energy into watching. So may God bless you highly as well for your efforts of just putting in the effort to watch and learn. Okay, I have oil, 2 to 3 drops oil. Got it. We'll buy organic rosemary tea off of Amazon. Yes, just go on Amazon and put buy 1 pound organic rosemary. Put rosemary leaves. If you put rosemary tea, they might show you the boxes. But you know what? If you put 1 pound, just putting 1 pound rosemary leaf, and even the organic options will show up. You say, thank you very much. You will implement. That's awesome. Afrocentric Anatomy TV. Ooh, that sounds interesting. Great info. Thanks so much. All right, guys, I really need to get these kids up, or else they're going to be late for their little spelling tests and whatnot. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow for the Q&A. At some point today, I will repost this on YouTube because for some reason, Restream is not posting it automatically to YouTube. It's just doing the live stream and then it just doesn't show up. So I have to go and download the video and then repost it to YouTube. So I'll do that later today. I'll also create a YouTube post and a Facebook post where you can leave any questions you want for the Q&A tomorrow. You can also email me a question if you want to, eden@prosperinbeauty.com. But just put in the title, in the subject line, put question for Saturday or question for live stream so that I can put them in a folder all in one place to answer, okay, during the call. All right. Thank you, Lindsay. Yep, catch the replay. You're on Facebook, so it should be up automatically. And those of you on YouTube, the replay will show up later, probably when my kids have their lunch break. All right, take care. Bye-bye.